Black Twitter put out this like fake tweet, and I think they're like,
Wait a moment. It's about your mother then. Yes, because I informed Bam that it's not regarding your M. It's not as though they were added to you. Nobody anticipated seeing Mendez Harris being carried away in handcuffs. However, that's precisely what left followers in a state of shock and prompted inquiries worldwide. Social media began to be inundated with reports, asserting that throughout what was meant to be a tranquil vacation, the situation got really out of hand. Voices were raised during a furious dispute between Spice and Bambi. Tensions were already high, and insults were exchanged. But no one could have foreseen what would happen next. In the when Erica Menace intervened in the midst of all that mayhem, what began as comments swiftly escalated into charges that rocked the audience. Videos and other materials that are circulating claim that Mendeecees was accused by Erica of touching her. "Don't touch me! I'll call the police!" she was heard screaming. At this moment, Yandy stood close by, appearing utterly stunned and powerless. The incident happened so quickly that before anybody could comprehend what was occurring, police were summoned to the site. According to reports, Mendeecees was arrested immediately. Fans couldn't believe whether something serious had happened or if this was just reality TV gone too far. We're dissecting everything that has surfaced regarding that evening in today's video, from the first dispute to the as soon as the police showed up. This one is serious, so take a seat. No one truly anticipated that things would go the other way, like they did. What started off as a tranquil getaway, where the cast members would reunite and work through their problems, gradually evolved into something quite else. Everything began so easily. Everyone seated at the table, relaxed atmosphere, lighthearted, banter, and sipping cocktails, interspersed with laughter. However, behind all of that, a sense of tension was already present. It wasn't first loud. Before Bambi and Spick's talk turned into a full-fledged argument, it was silent and hardly noticeable. They were first making jokes about Jamaican language. Bambi inquired about the meaning of a particular term. The second Spice gave the impression that it was about someone's mother, but Spice clarified that it was just laughter. It was personal, to Bambi. "Very calm but firm," she stated. "It's up if someone treats my mother disrespectfully." Spice also didn't back down. "Then, keep going. I'm ready," she responded. Things really started to pick up steam at that point. The volume of the words increased. The tone shifted. Around the table, the atmosphere changed. Yandy was seated on, whispering to Erica while silently attempting to maintain her composure. The cameras are the only reason they do it. Erica, however, was not grinning. When Bambi retorted, she had that expression on her face as if something else was happening. Inside of her, discussing real estate, homes, and body operations. Erica let out a little chuckle. You could tell she wasn't really focused on Bambi and Spice since she wasn't overt or noisy. Her thoughts were elsewhere. Bambi strikes Spice with that phrase just when it appeared like things couldn't get any more heated. "You don't have a home. You just have your messed up body." Spice returned the clap. "I'm proud of my scars, at least." Now the entire room was heated. The cameras continued to roll thanks to producers in the rear. No one was intervening. To prevent it, not quite yet. Eventually, in order to allow things to settle down, the two women separated. For air, people floated outside. It seemed as though everything were closing down. Erica's attention was drawn to Mendeecees, who was standing next to the corner, silently observing everything with her arms folded. She was drinking by herself, not far away. Erica approached him calmly, without being boisterous. "Oh," she remarked, "now the perfect couple shows up." Yandy stood beside him, gently tugging his arm. Lowly, "Don't even engage," she repeated. "What are you trying to say?" Mendeecees said, turning to face Erica. Erica made no hesitation at all. "In real life, you two only appear when the cameras are rolling," she added. Mendeecees' attempt to maintain composure was evident, as his jaw clenched slightly, yet he was just as sloppy as everyone else. He spoke in a level tone. When he said, "Erica, not tonight," she wasn't finished though. "You act like some stand-up dude. Take care of your own house before you talk about anybody else's," she continued, leaning slightly closer. Things took a drastic turn at that point. Mendeecees stepped forward. A hand reached out to avoid striking her. Not in that sense, but by highlighting, pointing, and moving in a way that made it appear larger than it actually was. Erica's reaction came at that moment. She screamed, "Don't even try!" as if he had actually tried something. "Me? I'm going to phone the cops immediately." Loud enough for everyone in the vicinity, too, in a matter of seconds. Yandy was between them, catching Mendeecees by the arm and yanking him back. Her voice trembling slightly as she said, "Please don't do this. Everyone is observing. However, people's phones were already up. Everywhere you looked, there were cameras. In a matter of minutes, videos appeared on Instagram. Posts such as "Did Mendeecees really just lose it?" were being made. And Erica playing victim or not? The retreat organizers attempted to calm everyone down as the producers were already speaking with security over the phone. Erica continued. To do so, she was standing there, loud enough for cameras and everyone else, said the blazing eyes. I'm going to lodge a complaint. He attempted to approach me. Additionally, you could hear sirens and distant lights flashing in the background. The whole retreat area died, silent. With their lights bouncing off the walls, police cars arrived, slicing like a dagger through all that tremendous energy. No longer tranquil island atmosphere, just frigid, raw tension. Officers moved out, assuming command. One approached Erica directly and asked her coolly, "What happened here?" Her voice was powerful but trembling as she recounted her story. He approached me. I was only protecting myself, while speaking quietly so that not everyone could hear. Another officer drew Manas aside. What happened, sir? Mendeecees was asked by the police. I didn't touch her. I tried to explain. I simply wanted to get my message out. However, neighboring residents were using their phones to show the police the video. Additionally, although the video didn't show him touching Erica, the way he walked up and pointed seemed hostile. The cops decided they had to hold him since it appeared to be terrible enough. Just enough to take him in and work things out away from all the cameras and shouting, but not necessarily an arrest just yet. Yand. The reason behind single quotations was a different matter entirely. She wasn't yelling. Everyone could see it in her eyes. Even if she wasn't sobbing aloud, she appeared shattered and utterly powerless. Mendeecees approached one of the officers as they prepared to lead her to the car, her voice low but frantic. Could I please say before you take him? Do you say something to him? The officer gave her a minute and nodded. There were still people all around Erica. Some whispered behind her back, while others inquired about her well-being. I've had enough, she repeated. I'm not ignoring this, but Yandy was only able to concentrate on Mendeecees. She approached him, held his hand and spoke in a low, very tremulous voice. You assured me that such an incident would never occur again. Mendeecees gave her a downcast gaze, just a type of blank stare, no words. There was nothing he could say. The officers then proceeded to put him in the vehicle. That silent escort, no handcuffs yet, but suddenly there was a distinct spirit in the air. Everyone fell silent. It was as though the entire space held its breath. All of that stress and all of that noise vanished into quiet. In the midst of all of that, Yandy stood there with her arms encircling her body, watching as everything around her seemed to be collapsing in real time. Furthermore, she was powerless to halt it in any way. There was a soft thump when the police car doors closed. However, it seemed like the loudest sound in the world to Yandy. She simply stood there and gazed at Mendeecees sitting in the rear window, his face partially obscured by the darkness. There was nothing left to say. Her surroundings were filming, whispering, and attempting to capture her response. However, Yandy was ignoring all of it. She wasn't thinking about the cameras. Due to an incident that went too far, it was on her spouse, who was now seated in a police vehicle. It moves too quickly. Erica had left with two of the producers in the meanwhile. Her arms were crossed, her face was taut, and her voice was low but yet passionate as she repeatedly gave her explanation of the situation. He approached me back. Off, I said to him. Don't touch me, I told him. Her voice trembled as if she wasn't sure whether she was going to weep or be furious. She was believed by some and not by others. However, Erica didn't give a damn about what other people thought at that time. The only thing that mattered to her was her account of what had happened. The retreat was essentially closed. No one actually moved when the organizers urged them to return to their rooms. People remained close to one another, standing in small groups and spoke quietly. A few were claiming that Mendeecees never touched her. Others claimed to have witnessed him approach too closely. She sounded as though speaking was painful. I advised him not to catch up. I informed him, as if that were the only thing keeping her together. She kept saying it. Yandy returned to her room and took a seat on the bed's edge. Erica was seated on the balcony, still a few doors down, looking through her personal social media accounts on her phone. The same clips were shown to her. In the comments, she observed people debating whether she was speaking the truth or lying. Among the messages were unpleasant. A few were helpful. She was no longer weeping, but her eyes were still red. She simply appeared worn out, as if the entire ordeal had sapped her last vitality. A producer approached her with a cautious, hushed voice. Tomorrow, Erica, the police will demand a formal statement. Are you certain that's what you want to do? Erica made no hesitation at all. Yes, without a doubt. Refusing to allow this is it. Not now. Her voice was decisive. She was not going to back down. Not with everything captured on camera already. The situation further worsened by the next morning. The story quickly gained traction on blogs. One headline after another appears. Following a violent altercation, Mendeecees was taken into custody. As her husband is arrested, Yandy Smith is captured in an emotional moment. According to reality personality Erica Mena, she was assaulted. The fans were in full-on research mode. Slow-motion videos were being posted by others in an attempt to demonstrate that Mendeecees did nothing. Others were accusing Erica of setting him up, tagging her, and calling her out. Overnight, the entire internet seemed to transform into a courthouse. At last, Yandy picked up her phone. She opened her notes app after scrolling through a few texts. For an instant, she simply gazed at the screen that was blank. Then she began typing ... Not for the cameras, and not for the blogs. It's simply her opinion. How do you maintain composure when everything seems to be falling apart around you? She wrote, it wasn't for anybody else, and it wasn't a post. Her phone rang a little later. It's just her way of breathing through the chaos. It was the attorney for Mendeecees. The news wasn't good, but the voice on the other end was composed. The attorney stated, they're holding him overnight, only till everything is sorted out. Yandy put her palm to her forehead and closed her eyes. Have they mentioned the charge? She inquired. It's just a holding situation right now, the attorney stated. Nothing official, but since Erica is turning in her report today, things can change. Yandy felt sick to her stomach. She was unable to even get to her feet. News spread quickly. People were already observing Yandy as she left her room, using sunglasses to conceal her puffy eyes. She could feel their eyes following her every move. But the crew and other actors were all too kind to ask her direct questions. One of the producers was waiting at the front desk, so she headed there with her head down. She was served coffee. She gave a head shake. She had nothing in mind. She only wanted to know when Men's will be returning home. Erica was already up and meeting with a local cop to make her official statement across the resort. That segment was not filmed by cameras. They didn't discuss it. However, there were speculations that she was stating spread quickly. Things went viral on the internet when someone informed a site that Mendeecees lunged at her became popular. #fairness. For Erica, fans of #FreeMendeecees were picking sides as if it were a sport. Yandy eventually spoke out later that day. She didn't go live. A statement was not posted by her. On her Instagram story, she just displayed a dark screen with one line of prayerful words. It was for clarity in the midst of chaos. No details, no names. However, everyone was aware of its meaning. Additionally, while Mendeecees was still waiting in a holding area when all of this was going on, only he and his thoughts. No phone, no outside contact. Can I talk to my wife? He repeatedly asked the cops, according to reports, but they consistently gave the same response. Not quite yet. He had lost his anger. Quiet, not shouting, awaiting a ... Fans were talking about it non-stop. It was inevitable, according to some. Others said it was all orchestrated. Yandy could hardly have been unaware of this approaching. A fan made a post. No, you could see it in her face, said another. She wasn't acting. In the meanwhile, the retreat's production had stopped. Because things had gotten too out of control, the producers sent everyone home early. The journey that was meant to unite people had departed. Everything is even more shattered than it was. Additionally, when the sun began to on the same balcony, where she and Mendeecees had spent a peaceful moment the day before, Yandy sat by herself that evening. She was now left with nothing but quiet, and in the background, she could hear her own heart shattering. Everything felt different by the time the second night arrived. It was no longer all about Mendeecees. The whole city was observing. Now, blogs weren't only sharing posts about the events. Anything that may be connected to the events between Erica and Mendeecees was being unearthed, including previous interviews and video recordings. The old rumors came back. People began to inquire as to whether they had previously experienced stress, things no one spoke about, and that the cameras missed roughly up until this point. It was no longer only a moment. It was a whole tale. That night, Yandy hardly slept at all. With her phone in hand, she paced her room for the majority of it. I had no idea why she was updating her feed. She was only scrolling, seeing how public opinion kept moving back and forth, and not publishing or responding to texts, and so on. Some admirers were defending Mendeecees in lengthy messages, claiming that he was a family man and had changed his ways. Not everyone was that understanding. Some of the statements that were said were, once a hothead, always a hothead. Yandy couldn't get that one out of her thoughts, and by the following morning, she received another call from Mendeecees' attorney. The news was a little better this time. The lawyer stated that they will release him today. However, an inquiry will still be conducted. Erica's comment caused chaos. When did Yandy release the breath she didn't even know she was holding? The lawyer responded within a few hours, saying, as soon as it's official, I'll text you. However, despite a little sense of relaxation, there was no true calm, and the atmosphere was chilly when Yandy left her chamber once more. It wasn't the cold you get in the weather. Rather, it was the cold that resides in people's eyes when they've witnessed too much and are at a loss for words. With her hood pulled down and sunglasses on once more, she headed to the resort's front gate, and a few producers attempted to apprehend her before she departed. In the meantime, Erica was not slowing down, and when asked if she wanted to make a statement on camera, she shook her head and remained silent. She was already taking off camera sit-downs with blog writers who would pay to hear her side of the story first, even if they weren't official TV interviews yet. In one clip that Erica's voice was heard in an early leak, stating that it's not only about me, but also about how women are treated when they defend themselves. When someone exceeds a boundary, you say that line went viral, with Instagram pages, gossip websites, and even some celebrity blogs were posting it with the phrase, something people try to turn it on you. Subtitles, such as Erica tells it like it is. Fans, however, weren't buying it all. Were lengthy threads dissecting Erica's previous drama, highlighting instances in which she had previously overstated things. They retrieved old show footage, statements, receipts, and even old tweets. Were other people supporting her, suggesting it perhaps? This time was different. Mendeecees was formally freed at midday. He had submitted papers but was not yet in handcuffs or had a complete arrest record. When he emerged from the holding facility, hoodie up, face drawn and exhausted, Yandy was already waiting outside with her car, waiting at the curb. Initially, neither of them spoke, nor did she. Yandy finally said after they stood face to face for a long while, as if they were both struggling to think of anything to say after everything that had transpired. First of all, her voice wasn't soothing, nor was it hostile. It's true. What took place? She asked directly. Mendeecees breathed out slowly. She pushed me. His voice was low as he said, I couldn't ignore some of the things she stated. I didn't, but I swear, touch her. Yandy looked at his face as if she were looking for a crack in his words, but she couldn't find one. She only gave him a slow nod before opening the car door to let him in. There was no sound at all on the drive back to their lodging, just the sound of tires on the road and two strangers seated next to each other, with no music or talk. Yet, thoughts were racing. There was a part of her that wanted to accept what he said. A part of her couldn't get rid of the tight picture of him approaching Erica with his hand up. It didn't matter if it wasn't to strike her. It was already decided by the world. They remained inside when they eventually returned. Curtains pulled, doors closed. The internet continued to swirl in the meanwhile. Now, more cast members' video. It started to surface. After everything happened, Spice was heard stating in the background of one video, I don't think Mendeecees intended it that way, but Erica is a master at making everything into a orchestrated the entire event. Mendeecees sat at the kitchen table with his hands clenched together and his head down as all that commotion continued to rise outside the home. Yandy was standing close by the window with both arms folded. She finally broke the stillness after what seemed like an eternity. Are you even aware of how awful this looks? She inquired. Sharp but soft voice. Mendeecees didn't raise his head. He just replied, yeah, just said. Yandy continued, don't shout, just be steady. This is different from the past. We now have children. My name cannot appear in a headline like this. Never again. At last, Mendeecees gazed into her weary eyes. Do you think I'm unaware of that? He inquired. Do you believe I desired this? It seemed for a moment that he would start crying. However, he didn't. He simply exhaled slowly and looked away once again. Outside the residence, the paparazzi had begun to assemble. Word had somehow gotten around about their accommodations. Through the windows, flashes were triggered. I looked in the direction of the commotion, but remained motionless. Yandy drew the blinds closer together. We can't stay here, she said to herself. Not in this manner. It was more than simply getting out of the home. It seemed larger than that. They might not have been able to return to the previous state of affairs. Too much harm has already been done. Later that evening, Yandy sat by herself, once more browsing through her phone on the back porch. She witnessed everything. Even her own fan sites were divided, as were blogs and comments. Some argued, that she should leave Mendez permanently this time, while others supported her. She was no longer even able to identify who was truly on her side. Everything seemed like cacophony. Then a message from an unidentified number buzzed through her phone. It turned out to be a video when she opened it. Just a video showing Erica stepping off to the side and speaking to one of the producers on the night of the incident. No commentary. Yandy pressed the button for volume and leaning in, I listened intently. A dot. Make sure they get my good side when he walks away, Erica said. She spoke in a precise, measured tone, and at that moment, Yandy felt after seeing the clip, Yandy sat there for a long time, feeling her stomach plummet again. She played her phone again to be sure she wasn't hearing things. But it was there, crystal distinct, as if it weighed 100 pounds. As though all that had transpired were only another scenario in a pre-written television program. The voice was steady and serene as she discussed her camera perspective. It wasn't about feeling frightened or afraid. Rather, it was about the understanding struck Yandy more strongly than everything else. The appearance, the viewpoint, the narrative. He needed to see it. So her initial impulse was to stand up and show him Mendez. For some reason, she just sat there, transfixed, looking out at the dark sky, yet he had to know. A part of her wasn't even surprised, while another part couldn't believe it. The fact that it was personal and not simply TV made it feel different, even if it wasn't the first time someone had been involved in this profession. After a lengthy period of sitting in quiet, the night air finally began to feel cold. This was her family, her true existence. Mendeecees was still in the kitchen, standing in the same place and adopting the same stance as if he had not moved. So she got up and went back inside. In hours, slowly she approached and placed her phone on the table before him. Eyes weary but intrigued, he raised his gaze to her and asked, "What's that?" Yandy took up the phone and whispered softly, "Just watch." In response to the question, he pushed play, and his countenance altered as soon as the words hit him. For a brief time, the kitchen was filled solely with Erica's voice. He listened to the entire thing, then gently put the phone down again, as if it may break if he didn't. Not out of rage exactly, but rather like something deep inside him breaking open. He went too quickly. "Now you trust me?" Mendez inquired, his tone just above a whisper. Yandy sat down opposite him, with her head in her hands and her elbows resting on the table, without immediately responding. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she finally said, her voice scratchy around the edges. "But I know this," she pretended. "Perhaps not the entire thing, but enough of it." They sat there for a while in quiet, simply talking to each other without any cameras, producers, or scripts. In the meantime, outside their bubble, the internet continued to spin faster and faster as they tried to decide what to do next. Within a few hours, the leaked video was all over the internet when someone shared it on a gossip page. People were talking about more than simply Mendeecees' arrest, and the headlines changed. They asked, it had all been a setup from the beginning. The video was analyzed frame by frame on Twitter, with many focusing on Erica's face, body language, and other details. In the comments, several fans expressed regret for passing judgment too quickly, while others reaffirmed that it didn't. What mattered was how it seemed when Mendeecees approached Kamara, regardless of what Erica said to her. It was like seeing a battle unfold on phone screens, with no one able to agree. However, Yandy didn't care about any of it. Determining her next course of action, knowing that everything would hit her more forcefully once she left that place and returned to the public eye. The following morning, shortly after daybreak, she finally made her appearance in front of the cameras, the press waiting outside, and the crowds shouting questions she didn't want to answer. She made a straightforward and clear decision, woke up, dressed, and put her hair back into a low bun. Mendez was still asleep on the couch, and she didn't wake him up. No glitter, no distractions, just her as she was. She just picked up her phone, put it in her pocket, and went outside, where reporters were waiting as soon as she opened the front door. Flashes flashed.